Look at my Star Trek toys! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Look at My Star Trek Toys. And boy, howdy, do we have an exciting episode today. Mike, are you excited?
Well, Keith, I'm born excited. I live every day excited, but we do our thing talking about toys on the internet. But what if?
Yeah, what if?
We loved. Remember back in the day when you go to Toys R Us, walk the aisles, you'd let it fill your spirit. You'd go home, you'd play with the action figures. Man, walking down that action figure aisle was everything to me. It is my childhood. But what if it was so important that I was like, let's do this. Let's make it my job, right?
Yeah.
What would that be like? Who could we talk to who could tell us whether that's a good idea or not?
It's basically, we're like an 80s movie. We loved something so much. We have summoned Brian Volk-Weiss over at Nacelle Toys. Is it Weiss or Weiss? Because I'm thinking it's German,
I always love when people slip into German. In the United States, it is Volk-Weiss.
Weiss.
In Germany or Austria, which is where my ancestors are from, it would have been Volk-Weiss.
Volk-Weiss, yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show here to talk about Nacelle Toys' incredible new line of Star Trek action figures. And that's what we do here on the show. We talk about action figures. We're honored that you came on to talk about Wave 1, Wave 2, and the upcoming Wave 3. But I wanted to start today with a little bit of accountability. Because this whole thing, including all the nonsense behind me, is your fault. This show started, my collecting restarted because of the toys that made us. And the episode you did on the Playmates action figures, when you aired that, I owned 0 Playmates action figures. And now I have all of them, and I'm here talking on the internet. So so thank you for making all of this happen and making this show happen.
So first of all, thank you for having me on. I very much appreciate the invitation. Second of all, it wasn't just Playmates. I'm very proud of what we were able to get out of the Galoob days.
Well, that's how I started, yeah.
And, if I'm being honest, it's funny in Toys That Made Us Star Wars. Sorry, did I just break a rule? Can I talk about Star Wars?
No. We accept all kinds.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. You're very understanding. So it's funny. I don't know if you remember this or not, but in the Star Wars episode, we interviewed the head lawyer at Kenner. And he told us all these stories. One of the things that he said that I thought was brilliant, and it really made me look at my own career very differently because I had taken this for granted. But he said this thing that was really interesting. What he said was, he was like, I'm sure I'll get the company wrong. Yeah, I think he worked at Lockheed Martin before he went to Kenner. And he had this great line where he said, I worked at Lockheed Martin, and it was a great job, and I loved the people, but I was a patent lawyer. And a lot of what I did every day was get parts of engines that operated at 25,000 degrees Fahrenheit patented, something that made everybody's air travel safe, but nobody could see it. Nobody knew it existed. Yeah. And to a certain degree, other than wanting a safe flight, didn't care about. Then I go to Kenner, and no matter where I am, if people ask where I work, if I say Kenner, they are blown away, and all they want to do is talk about Star Wars. And I could see in their eyes the impact that the company I worked at had on their lives. The reason why I tell this story is what you said about how you had no Playmates and now you have all the Playmates, and I really got to ask if you have them all.
Close, not all, but close.
Even I don't have them all.
I don't have the Grails yet, so.
Ironically, I think I have all the Grails. I am missing a couple things, but anyway, my point is, I just want to say thank you for that compliment, and within reason, that is That's the biggest compliment you could give, not just me, but the entire team that I represent.
Well, it's really true. I mean, it just rekindled like whatever that spark is when we're kids, when you just have that tactile thing. Oh my God, I have to have that. And then like you become teenagers and in your 20s, like, oh, that's for kids. I don't want that. And then like something like your show, and I saw them all lined up together, and maybe it's my autism, but I'm like, oh boy, I could have that. And it's so addictive. It's like crack. I'm like, I'm just gonna get the next gen Bridge Crew. And then like, well, I should probably get Deep Space Nine too. And then, I mean, all bets are off, and then we're doing the show. So I think that's what made that whole series so wonderful for the people who watched it. Because if you had it already, great. But like, I don't know how many people's love of toys was rekindled by that.
Yeah, I feel like I referenced it in the beginning, and it's tough because it's nice to have something that's tactile. A toy is something that's tactile that is really about a feeling, right? It's about capturing a feeling. Yes, it's about play for kids and such, but for people our age, a little older, it rekindles, like Keith said, a spirit, a feeling. And I guess that transitions to the question I have, and I alluded to it, is where did that start for you, and what was the fulcrum to say, hey, I want to do this as my job, and like, how did you get there?
So the luckiest thing in the world is that I met my wife, and I know that's cheesy, but it's true. I literally I cannot believe how anytime I have a bad day or bad luck, I just have to think of the odds of how I met my wife, and I instantly feel better. That's number one, and I can assure you, she will never hear this podcast. So I did not say that for her benefit. She thinks Star Trek is like this weird religion that I'm in. That's number one. Number two, this is the luckiest thing in the world. I pretty much have known since I was 4 or 5 years old what I wanted to do for a living.
Mm.
And that is entirely because of George Lucas and Star Wars. I was young. I was born in May of '76. I have no memory of seeing A New Hope or even Empire. But my mom, and she would tell this to everybody who would listen, my mom, who's like a scientist and a very serious woman, who, by the way, also did introduce me to Star Trek, and she loved Star Trek, but she basically was starting to freak out a bit because I was so young when I saw the movie that the way I talked about it, even though I didn't know the word documentary, I was kind of acting as though A New Hope was a documentary. And
Mm.
I was going around all the time talking about how I was going to join the rebellion, learn how to be an X-Wing pilot. And I told you my mom was like real serious, and this was freaking her out. So she bought me a book. If we were at home, I could show it to you. I still have it. The Making of Star Wars. That was for 5-year-olds. And
Mm.
instead of the Death Star being the size of the moon, it was the size of it was 12 feet. Anthony Daniels had his mask off, and you could see C-3PO wasn't really a robot. From the minute I saw that, this is all I've wanted to do.
Mm. Interesting. She like took you by the hand and guided you through the fourth wall at a
Yeah.
at a 5-year-old level. Oh, that's really interesting. I was the same way with Trek. It's not so much that because I started on Next Gen when I was 7, and my family worked on it, so I was like sort of into it. But I internalized not necessarily the sci-fi of it all, but the world of Trek and the sort of like logic-based world and kindness-based world, and thought that that was going to be the world, and was very disappointed when like the world did not operate like the Enterprise worked. But it was sort of the same thing. Like I thought, oh, this is it. This is real. This is what being an adult means. This is how you problem solve. And
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I can tell I'm a little older than you. So for
not
me,
much. Oh, 80.
well, what'd you say? Well, it's funny you say that. I got 3 kids. I got an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And the difference between the 10 and 7, that's a big deal compared to the
Yeah.
11 and the 10. Um, so those 4 years between us, I think directly resulted, my Star Trek, like my favorite, and don't get me wrong, Next Gen is a close second, but my favorite is the movies, not even the original series.
Oh,
Like
sure. Yeah.
Star Trek 1 through Star Trek 6, that's my Star Trek. So, like, I think I may have had it easier than you because I was more of a Kirk guy than a Picard guy.
Right. Right.
And there was definitely a little more cowboy. So
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I say this all the time. In my will, like literally in my will, in my estate planning and all that crap, it says on my tombstone, it will say, "I don't believe in the no-win scenario" by James T. Kirk.
Of course.
That line. So George Lucas and Star Wars, that's why I chose the career I chose.
Yeah.
That line from Wrath of Khan, that is how I've gotten to this point in my life.
That's well, and it's got to be such a fulfilling life because both Mike and I are in musical theater and also chose a wildly unrealistic artistic based dreamer job, right? And but chose something that was not going to be Lockheed. No shade on Lockheed. I
No.
mean, that is darn essential stuff, but like this to follow that thing that makes us excited to go to work. And I imagine looking at the wall behind you, when you go into your office, it's not a, oh, bummer, I went into my office today.
No, it is exact. No, to answer your question succinctly, no, it is not. I love
Yeah.
coming to work. But what I always say is, I feel like I'm having what I call a Benjamin Button career because most careers usually get worse as you go along, one degree or another.
Uh-oh.
Um, I started off literally with one of the worst jobs in Hollywood. I was a manager for 10 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
all I managed was comedians. So imagine like
Oh, no.
I'm like a big sci-fi pew 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 movie guy,
Right.
and I fell into managing comedians. But it was the greatest thing in the world because I was very lucky. I had some clients become very successful, and I was able to take the money that those clients generated, my commission, and I used that. So that was career one.
Mm.
I used that to fund career two, which to this day we are the biggest producer and distributor of stand-up comedy in the world.
Wow.
And then that allowed us to get into documentaries, which led to Toys That Made Us, which led to us making toys
Huh.
and now cartoons. And then in the most random of random of random, we ended up with the Star Trek license.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was going to ask how that came your way because to be such a fan and then to be able to get, especially as Playmates and some other lines were sort of getting more niche or falling off entirely, you get that license and now you can kind of do the Keith's dream. We started this show in the first episode. We did like a 4-part series of the toys I wish they would just make so I could put them on the shelf and fill in the gaps. And then here comes you on this white stallion, which you're also making with Kirk, to to give Keith his dream. So how did that fall in your lap?
I mean, again, this is the craziest story. So, there's this TV show. Well, let me go back a second earlier. So, there's a company called Alcon Television, and they do a lot of stuff. They do Blade Runner, and they do a lot of stuff. Founded by the guy who founded FedEx. So he took the FedEx money and he started making TV shows and movies. So I had a meeting there, and 100% of the meeting was about me trying to get them to give us money to do TV shows together, to partner up. In the meeting, one of the guys, literally covering his whole forearm, was it was a tattoo. And I just looked at him because it looked really familiar. And I'm like, "Can I ask you a question?" He's like, "Yeah." I go, "Is that tattoo from The Expanse?" And he
Huh.
goes, "Yeah." And they make The Expanse, but I really didn't occur to me people that worked there, this tells you a lot about all the companies I deal with. It didn't occur to me that somebody who worked there would be that big of a fan of The Expanse that he'd tattoo his arm.
Oh,
And it
that's
was a
cool.
very obscure tattoo. Like it wasn't like he had the logo of The Expanse or
Right,
something.
right.
Like it was very, there's like one spaceship that was in like 5 episodes out of 80 episodes. And it was like something on the side of that ship. So long story short, that led to us getting the rights to make the Expanse toys, which are coming out in a couple months. So the rest of the story would not have happened had this not occurred.
Mm.
So that's the beginning of the trilogy. The next part, I'm in a meeting with Playmates about something else that had nothing to do with Star Trek. And the guy in the meeting casually mentioned they weren't doing Star Trek anymore.
Mm.
So after the meeting, I texted our head of consumer products and I was like, do you know anyone at Paramount? And he was like, I wouldn't be very good at my job if I didn't. So I was like,
Right.
can you see if we can pitch him Star Trek?
Yeah.
2 weeks later, they agreed to take the pitch. So we spent
Unbelievable.
a couple weeks preparing a deck that should have been 8 to 10 pages. I believe it was 42 pages long.
That sounds
And
right.
we did the presentation. This is now the beginning of the third act of the trilogy. And we did the pitch. It was literally like if you think Valkyris and Tuvix are obscure, you should have seen who was in that deck. Um, about 2 weeks after that, they asked me if I would meet with some of the big bosses. I said, sure. The gist of that meeting, if I'm being honest, was I think the big bosses wanted to be like, okay, it's cool that he's a fan, but is he a crazy fan or a
Mm.
good fan?
Mm.
And I guess I passed the test because about 2 weeks after that, we got the email saying we'd been approved. I have that email framed on my wall over there.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
Wow.
that's how it happened.
And it's almost like the genesis of that, no pun intended, being the hyper obscure, informed where you've gone with this line.
So yes and
Not
no.
hyper obscure, but like,
Yes. Well, no.
not
That
the
really
obvious.
was that really was the right term to use. I would amend it, and I don't think I'm splitting hairs, but maybe I am. But I would amend it to this. I'll give you like this was the elevator pitch for years because just so you know, long before we started making toys, like I'm friends with people that own toy companies and work at toy companies. Super 7, NECA, like, so I was always saying to them this, and this is what I said to Paramount. There is a salamander Tom Paris. Why is there not a Captain Garrett?
Right?
There is a salamander Tom Paris.
He's right
Why
behind me.
is
He's right
there
there.
not a Captain Jellicoe?
Yes.
Like that was the pitch. That was the whole pitch. So it's not like now listen, you could accuse me of obscurity and you'd be right with Valkyris, that I'll give you. But as you probably noticed, I changed the conditions of the test and filled her up with Genisys paraphernalia.
Well, so smart.
But that said, yes, Captain Garrett's in one episode.
But
But
it's the best
that
episode.
episode is either the best episode ever made or tied with Inner Light.
Yeah,
And that's
I
not
agree.
my opinion. First of all, my opinion is yesterday's Enterprise is the best Star Trek ever made. Uh, Inner Light is somewhere between an 11th and 20th favorite episode. For the
Mm.
life of me, I don't know why that's so popular, but it's not relevant because that Picard has been made. Like I have so many goddamn flutes in my accessory box of the shit I don't display. Like we didn't need another
Yeah,
Picard, Inner Light Picard. So I wanted to do the other one, Rachel Garrett, Castillo, like that.
yeah.
So that's what Tuvix I never would have done in a billion years, except he had become a meme.
Yeah.
So I went back and I watched the episode. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't seen the episode since it aired.
Yeah.
And I was there the night it aired. I never watched it again. So I went back and I watched it again when we got the license. And listen, the opening, like the cold open, F minus. If you ever want to get anybody to not like Star Trek, show them the opening of Tuvix.
Yeah. So there's some Voyager cold opens in that category. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Next Gen has them too.
Oh, they all do.
But the episode itself, that is one of the best Star Trek episodes ever made.
But it's the quintessential Star Trek because it's about the
Yes.
big idea. It's about the impossible quandary.
It's about the big idea. It's as you said, it's about the impossible quandary, and they didn't give her an out.
No.
Janeway was absolutely backed into a corner, and the writers didn't give her any solid nothing. She had to kill somebody, two people or one person. And the shot of her walking down the hallway at the end in silence for about a good 20 seconds, that's a lot of time for a 42-minute episode without commercials. Like, so that's why we did Tuvix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it shows the balls that they had in some of those episodes. And we do a review show of Deep Space Nine where they're confronted with something like that every episode. And and let me be clear, when I say obscure, I mean that as a compliment. Like,
and I took it as such.
Yeah.
I took it as
we
such.
live in the obscure. The obscure, that's where the joy is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my basics, and I think we should talk a little bit about Wave 3, because we've talked ad nauseum about the first two waves here on the show. So I definitely want your thoughts on Wave 3, but like, I'm so excited for 4 and 5 and 6 to have a mixture of the obscure and the not basic is the wrong word, classic. Because I have about 200 ideas for you.
I should.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, go please.
So for Wave 3, we don't need any ideas, because and this is this is what I'm trying to get out far and wide. So I'm glad you asked. Starting with Wave 3. So Wave 1 is what's called an assortment. Wave 2 is an assortment. Starting with Wave 3, we are doing bridge crews. Yes. So Wave 4 will be an assortment. Wave 5 will most likely be Next Gen.
Okay.
So et cetera, et cetera. So Wave 3 is going to be in their duty uniforms, obviously from season 2, because Chekhov wasn't in season 1. But it will be
original series duty uniforms is Wave 3.
Yes. Season 2, Wave 3. So it's the main cast in their duty uniforms, the way you saw them on TV. But as you probably know, we went from 8 figures to 10 figures per wave between Wave 1 and Wave 2. So that gives us some opportunities. Yeah. So we're going to include Rand. We're going to include Chapel. And then we have a surprise that we are not announcing till probably next year. So so that's what Wave 3 is. So, and the reason for it is, and the thing I just want to make sure the community understands is I know a lot of people talk about they listen to the fans, and some do, some don't, some better than others, et cetera, et cetera. We literally and really listen to the fans. We set up an email address. We've received well over 5,000 emails. I've read every single one of them. I've responded to 99.9% of them. We had a couple of assholes. But my favorite was someone said I was sexist because of the Rachel Garrett debris in her head, alt head. That was my favorite. It was interesting that I'm the guy.
That's a bold choice. That's a bold take.
It was definitely bold. I don't know if it's sexist. But anyway.
No, their take was bold. I was
Yes. Yeah.
their take was hot nonsense, is what I'm
So
saying.
other than that type of email, I respond to everything. So the most, and again, I have a 5,000 piece toy collection. Over 1,000 of those are Star Trek.
That's awesome.
But it's interesting, man. People collect differently than one another, which I know is obvious, but I just buy what I want. And I don't care. Like, I have both McFarlane Star Trek figures. When the line got canceled, I wasn't upset or anything. I wasn't like, oh man, I invested in these and now they're not making. I was like, they're cool. It's the best Picard I've ever seen. It's one of the best, if not the best, TOS Kirks I've ever seen. It came with great accessories, and that was it. It was over. Okay, cool, whatever. What's next? Apparently, I'm in the minority.
There's a lot of there's a lot of checklists out there.
Yeah. So even though it's not the way I collect, it was the most common complaint was that why would I buy a Valkyris if I can't get a Captain Kirk? So that's what inspired what ultimately became this every other wave where we do the bridge cruise. And that's why we're doing it, so that everybody will be able to have quote unquote a complete set. Every figure has a number. And if you've seen it in the artwork or if you ever buy them, you'll see it on the box. Every number. So Jellicoe is the first figure. And he, like I said, he was the main, and Garrett's number 2, et cetera, et cetera. All the boxes, instead of saying number 1, say number 001, 002. And the reason for that is my goal is to get to 1,000 characters. Will we get there? Who knows? Statistically speaking, highly unlikely. But we gonna try. And by the way, I wanted to do 3 zeros because rumor has it
Right,
number
sure.
1,000 has 3 zeros.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
I was told that was too crazy. So that's why we got that. But the point I'm trying to make is it was very clear to me from all the feedback we got, we needed to let the audience know, and this is what I say in all the meetings and everything, a lot of the press that I do, robust. That's why we went from 8 figures to 10. Like, that's why we're now telling people over and over again, we're hoping to do at least 2 waves a year. So that's why we're doing this. And I will say this, and I know this might be an asshole thing for me to say. There is something we are announcing at Star Trek Las Vegas that I cannot talk about now, that I really want to, but this is going to seem a little less crazy come August.
Okay.
Well, which is I mean, like that is so exciting to hear. And I think for all of the nervous collectors who went through the Playmates experience, where it felt like they were so timidly dipping their toes in a little bit here and there, to have somebody fully committed and fully invested, I think that's what we want. We want a big swing. We want the possibility of the 1,000 figures. And I have to say, knowing that you're adding Rand and Chapel to that wave, I love that so much, because there has always been a dearth of female figures. And we have never gotten proportionally what we should. And I'm really glad that you're doing that, because they deserve to be part of this line. And I think certainly all the customizers will be delighted.
Yeah, let me turn the tide. There's so much excitement, but I have 2 questions for you, and I know we're butting up against time here, but so I have my pre-order in, right, for the lot of them. So my question is, fall is nebulous. When am I going to get something in my mail, A? And B, there's a lot of conversation, I know as a businessman, it can't all be fun and games. You got to worry about price points and such. So what was kind of your calculus on and zeroing in on a price point between like collectors and, toys, right? And also this tariff scenario. I'm sure
before we
questions.
inevitably talk about the tariffs. Yeah.
So, hopefully, if I forget one of your questions, I apologize. Wait, what was the first question? What was A? I remember B.
A was just sort of, when am I getting my toys?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, definitely 100% short of World War III, or something like that.
Not impossible.
Definitely before Christmas. So
Cool.
definitely before December 25th.
Okay.
Fantastic.
We are working extra super duper hard to try and get them to everybody before Thanksgiving. So that's that. The price point. I know it's always a weird thing to say, and I've been saying it my whole career. As the owner of a company, I look up to Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
I do not look up to Tiffany's.
Mm.
Like, I didn't want to make a product that was for a small amount of rich people. I wanted to make a product for everybody. And that's not because I'm Robin Hood or some fucking socialist bullshit. If I'm going to spend my time and energy on something and take risk, I want it to be on as many TV screens as possible and on as many shelves as possible. So that was number one. Number two, maybe I'm one of the only people who notice this in a chair like I sit in, but rumor has it the economy ain't so great.
This is what I've heard. What? This is what I've heard.
So I just knew that my gut told me be under 30, be under 30, be under 30. So that's what my gut told me. And then the other thing I can say, and I gotta be careful the way I say this because I think I may have pissed off some other toy companies, which was not my intention. But I own the company outright. I have no partners. I have no shareholders. I have no board. And we also do a lot of different things. We're the biggest producer of stand-up specials. We have a 2,000-hour library that makes money every minute of every day worldwide. We have an international sales arm. We make books. We have podcasts. And by the way, most importantly, I saved the best for last. We're not a public company.
Yeah.
So I think I have less pressure on me regarding margins than other companies.
Sure.
I need to be profitable to keep making more. I don't need so much profit to keep shareholders happy or to keep my bank happy. So I think a lot, like you were talking about with Playmates, which is a company I love and respect.
all do.
I know, well, yeah. But then when I saw the only one of their figures I bought was Saru, because no one had made him before. I already had a Michael from Mego. Let's just say, because I think they have more pressure on their margins than I do, that's why they did what they did, because I know a lot of Trekkies work there. I know they know what I know. So the only reason I would think they launched with that line, I also bought Spock, but I didn't put him on display. I bought him because I wanted the gloves.
The gloves over here, yeah.
The gloves, yep.
So I have the gloves in my collection, not the Spock. I swear to God, that's true. So anyway, that's the long way of saying, not only did I think that was the right price, it was all up to me. And like I said, I didn't have a board. I don't have shareholders. My CFO might think I'm nuts, but
well, I mean, it is remarkable. I haven't seen the figures yet, but it is remarkable from what I can tell. The quality of the figure at that price point, but also the forgive me because this word stuck, and it's probably not what you want to hear. But all the choking hazards are so generous and so detailed, and it is remarkable. Like, oh, you're going to get all of those things with this figure still under $30.
Storytelling, right? That adds just a lot of storytelling.
But by the way, we're making so many choking hazards. Some of them are literally not choking hazards.
Well, the horse. It's hard to choke on a horse.
Like, maybe for a hippopotamus. But that Genisys torpedo ain't going nowhere. The clamshell case and the control panel, none of that going nowhere. So
it's amazing. I was like, this is gonna like to include the Genisys torpedo in there. Now, is that included as just a regular old choking hazard for the figure?
Yep.
At the same price point? Because I was wondering if that was going to be a separate thing.
Kirk is the same price point, like
That's
with the
amazing.
horse and the dillweed.
Of
But yeah,
course.
it's because again, this is the way it works. This is the way it works. And again, I've only been making toys for 3 years. But because the toys that made us, which I joke, but it's barely a joke. I mean, it's literally like going to like graduate school,
I'm sure.
like
Yeah.
business school. We'll make it up. Like because of Jellicoe, we now have molds for that body shape in that
Yeah.
uniform.
Mm.
Yep.
Now, I'm not sitting here saying we're going to be sluts and wave 4 and 5 and 10 and 11 and everything. I'm not saying that. But basically, at some point, there will be another character that can wear the exact same thing as
Right.
Jellicoe with a different
Yeah.
head. And
I
that'll
mean,
be
80% of Playmates
extremely-
figures are that.
Yeah. So that'll be exponentially more profitable for us.
That's
So
smart. Yeah.
we can make exponentially less money on a Kirk and less money on a Valkyris because we make it up on like Sulu. Like Sulu,
Right.
I have all of them up there. That's why I'm looking. But like, yeah, Sulu.
Just
I
off
mean-
screen. Just off screen.
Well, you not to be a jerk, but I can't help it. You should see what's off screen now.
Oh man.
Yeah. Over there, you've seen.
Right.
Over there, you have not seen. That's coming.
I tell
That's
you, we
the
could
Star
break some
Trek Las
news.
Vegas thing.
What's
we could
that?
break some news.
What's that process like? When do you what of the whole journey from like the idea in the room to your first prototype? Like, what's your favorite part?
I mean, my favorite part technically is picking the characters, which I really need. I want to be very. I want to brag about this. I mean, we work very closely at that point with Paramount, and I just feel like a lot of people kind of either don't talk about their studio partners, or they make fun of them, or they complain about them. Paramount has been wonderful. I am dealing with people that, for the most part, know Star Trek as much as me. And I would say one guy there in particular has definitely protected me from myself. So some of the more well-known characters in Wave 1 definitely were influenced by him saying, hey, do you want to make any money on this wave? So, by the way, but I will say that, listen, his advice was golden, and I'm glad we did everything he said. Don't get me wrong. But one thing I do want to say, because again, this goes towards the robustness issue. We made in 30 days what we had projected out for 6 months.
Really?
So it's a hit. Like, it's a hit.
That's awesome.
You know what? I really appreciate you saying that and reassuring this whole audience, because we talk so much about Playmates and speculating about the financial aspects of all of this, worrying that if it's not financially successful, then the whole thing blows up. But if that's not the case,
I wish I could show you not just the numbers, which of course I would never do, and I wouldn't do this either. But if I showed you the order in which who's the best seller, who's the worst seller.
Interesting.
I don't even know if you would believe it. I believe it. It doesn't surprise me at all. But
I'm so psyched to hear that. I'm delighted to hear that. And I think everybody watching this is going to like do a big sigh of relief and probably feel more confident in making that next order, because the next one's coming. It's actually going to happen, as opposed to so many things that got promised that fizzled out.
I again, as you know, you live on the same planet I do. You have the same president I do, et cetera, et cetera. We're on the same planet as India and Pakistan and China and Taiwan, Israel and Palestine. So assuming nothing comes out of that or AI, we are doing at minimum 4 waves at minimum, and the thing in August we'll be announcing.
All right, so the August thing, but just to really hyper focus in on the show we do, because we do this Deep Space Nine show, and Keith is my guardian into Trek, so he is Sherpaing me into this universe very
So he
specifically.
wasn't a Trek fan when we started.
No, I was not. That he's totally brought me into this, and so I'm I almost had to take my earphones off when you're talking about Janeway, because we've yet to get to Voyager.
That's our next show.
Yeah, but for us Deep Space Nine guys, right? So I see my Wayun, I see my Nog coming. If you, in your wildest imagination, no promises, what are you looking forward to in the Deep Space Nine universe?
Well, Wave, if we, and I have no reason to think we won't, but Wave, I'm bad at math, so 3 is TOS, 4 is assortment, 5 is next gen, 6 is assortment. So Wave 7 will be Deep Space Nine in bridge crew uniforms.
This is
But I
Give
can
it to
tell
me
you,
right.
there will be Deep Space Nine in every wave. There is definitely at least one Deep Space Nine character in Wave 4. I can promise you that. I am all but positive you'll be happy. So yeah, it's.
I mean,
I'm a huge.
assuming it's Martok, of course. I
Naturally,
know you can neither
I'm
confirm
a
nor deny.
huge. I don't like to say I'm a huge Deep Space Nine fan. I'm a huge Dominion War fan,
Well,
and
sure, yeah.
which is, as you know, I think 5 of the 7 seasons.
Yeah.
So, so that's a good clue as to what you'll be seeing.
Okay.
Fantastic. So my last, so one quick question, and then I do want to hit the tariffs and see how.
Yeah, and I do have to jump. I have a very
Yes, you gotta
hard
go.
out 5 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
Sorry.
very quickly, as it relates to Deep Space Nine and sort of everybody, assuming we're getting 1,000 figures, alt uniforms, meaning like the Deep Space Nine, the season 5 switch over to the First Contact uniforms or the original. Are you going to do alt uniforms for people moving forward?
So we're doing we have an experiment going on right now. I'm so glad you asked this. So if you saw in Wave 2, we have a Worf from the opening scene of Generations, because we're doing a mini wave of Generations and 17th century sailing uniforms. They always say it's 19th century, but I'm pretty sure it's not. But anyway,
seem 19th century.
doesn't seem. It looks very 17th to me, at least 18th. Anyway, because I was there, you know. Anyway,
of course.
So if you, oh, good. So you can see in that picture there, that is how he appears in the movie, because the whole point of the scene is they're making him walk the plank and they're doing this thing and yada, yada, yada. I think we can assume that before the movie started, he was fully dressed like all the others. So we are working now on a way to do what we like to call replacement torsos. And the way we eventually figure it out could be more simple than that or more complicated than that. But what we're trying to do with that figure is make it so he can look like he does in the picture you have, or look like he did off camera, so he can literally match the other 6.
Oh, that's cool.
So that would be what we would do with what you just brought up, because the pants are the same, the heads are the same. So that's how we would handle that potentially.
Awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm so excited about all of that. But I know you got to go. So tell us how our dystopian world that we live in and the chaos of the tariffs are going to affect or not affect any of this.
As of now, and I believe the tariff is 145%.
Fucking chaos.
If it doesn't go up, we will not be raising prices, and we will not be delaying anything that's greenlit. We may hold off on greenlighting some non-Star Trek stuff. But and by the way, yeah. You know, again, what I'm trying to tell you is this. The margins really are good for making toys. If nobody buys them, they're horrible. But if you do have a fan base and the figures are selling, the margins are pretty damn good.
So even with these current crazy tariffs, you can still go.
And
That's fantastic.
to be clear, because sometimes I work, because again, when we first announced Wave 1, a lot of people said who had never heard of us before were like, oh, this guy must not care about making a profit. I absolutely do. The company cannot function without profit. I will not do anything without profit. Like
Well,
we
we're
are
never going to
not.
go to 1,000 figures if you're not making a
Right.
profit.
Yeah. So yeah, even with that tariff, we can make money.
Unbelievable. Well, that's a big sigh of relief for everybody, for sure. And hopefully those will go away and then we'll be all right. But
Yeah, and that's the other thing. They're not going to stick. So
right.
it's just, our expanse figures are shipping right now. And we got nailed on those, the
Yeah.
just bad timing, bad luck, but still going to make money on them.
Wow. Well, if they stick, we're going to have much bigger problems than figures anyway. So, but I'm delighted to hear all of this. I am so grateful that you took the time to chat with us. And I know I have a list of about 300 other questions we didn't have time for. I'll send you an email. But anyway, we really, really appreciate you coming on. We are very excited about all of these lines and can't wait to get our grubby little hands on them and pop them up on the shelf there. Have to make some more space. But very excited for what you're doing and how you're doing it and for the company. And we're rooting for you hard.
Thank you. Again, thank you for inviting me and having me. If you want to DM me your email address, I'll DM you mine. And then, or you can just go to our StarTrek.com thing, whichever one you want. And I'd be happy to see that list.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. Very, very grateful. This is how we finish the show. Yeah. We'll talk to you soon. Till then, this has been Look at My Star Trek Toys! Whoosh!